Hey guys, welcome to Northeast India, and today we are gonna see how this tiny little piece moves, which is known as the pawn. The pawn is worth 1 point, and to move it's very simple. It basically goes one square at a time and it never goes backwards. It can only go straight. So when we move the pawn and it reaches the last rank, it's promoted. See, as you can read here, pawn promotion, your pawn reached the end of a board, it now promotes to a stronger piece, select the piece if you want. So basically, queen, knight, rook and a bishop is what the pawn can become. It can't become another pawn obviously, and the king because the king is precious. So the best thing is to make a queen, and now you can just do whatever you want with the queen. Okay, in this case we'll try to make the knight and boom. Okay, so basically the pawn moves straight and captures diagonally, and this rule is very important. The pawn can't move diagonally just as such. It has to capture something, and obviously if there's some piece here, then the pawn cannot capture. As you can see in this position, that the pawn cannot go here, it must capture like this, and then we can just complete the exercise. Okay, similarly guys, if we capture this, then that's a blunder because our pawn is not going anywhere. These two squares are occupied, and this square is also occupied by the knight, so sorry, the star. The pawn can't go anywhere, so move it like this. There is one more rule about the pawn is that the pawn can go two squares whenever they are on their home rank. Basically, this pawn is on its home rank, which is the second rank for white and the seventh rank for black, and it has the liberty to go two squares in just one move, only and only when it is on the home rank. So in this case, the white pawn has choice to go either two squares or one squares, whatever he wants. So basically, if he goes one square, then he can never go two squares again. Again, we can go two squares, move one square straight, and then go diagonal. Now we need to capture this. We go two square again, and boom, the exercise is completed. There's one more very advanced rule about the pawn movement, is that this rule is known as En-Passant, or in some very simple language it's called as En-Passant. And this rule is a French rule, and it's kind of tricky, but basically it simply means that when our pawn is on the fifth rank, then if our opponent pawn moves two squares on the fifth rank, then we can capture the pawn like this immediately. See, our pawn is on the fifth rank, and black just placed his pawn two squares like this. And now we can just capture this pawn like this. This is known as En-Passant. Notice that you have to capture it immediately, or if you don't capture it on that move, then you cannot capture that pawn ever with En-Passant. So this pawn was on d5 before only, but this pawn just moved on g5, so we can't capture this one, but we can capture like this. Alright, a tiny exercise. Notice you can't capture with this pawn because it must be on the fifth rank as it's highlighting here, or I would say that they are near each other, staring at each other. So you go boom, 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 that's it. En-Passant, again, En-Passant, again, En-Passant, and En-Passant, En-Passant. Thank you so much for watching.